So let's get right down to business. First of all, it is already confirmed that Call of Duty Warzone officially hits 30 million players in 10 days, and honestly, that's pretty impressive for any game. I do know it does, of course, have the Call of Duty name attached to it, so it's not that impressive, but then again, it is impressive. And I actually want to talk about this because I think it's very interesting that Call of Duty Warzone officially hit 10 million players worldwide in just 10 days. And like I said again, that is very impressive for any game, whether you're a big franchise or not. Just to see that much success out of a game is absolutely phenomenal. And there is a lot of things to be said about Call of Duty Warzone and why Call of Duty Warzone hit 30 million players in 10 days. Obviously, the first thing to look at, of course, is that Call of Duty name. And of course, Call of Duty is a very respectable franchise. Whether you love the franchise, whether you hate the franchise, whether they've done stuff in the past that's been questionable or not, Call of Duty is, of course, when it comes to video games, a household name. And since, of course, Call of Duty is a household name, of course, a lot of people are going to want to check this game out, whether they're into this type of game or not, just because they know Call of Duty makes some of the best gun gameplay when we're talking about shooting games in general. Now, really quickly, I do want to say, if you don't know anything about Call of Duty Warzone, which of course most likely you know a lot about Call of Duty Warzone, everyone's talking about it, everyone's playing it, it's still very new, but essentially what Call of Duty Warzone is, it is another form of a battle royale. Whether you love battle royales like Fortnite or whether you hate battle royales, yes, it is another battle royales. And they do have another mode in Call of Duty Warzone. If you never actually wanted to give this game a try, they do actually have a mode called Plunder. And Plunder is a little bit different than your standard BR. You're still on a regular BR map, so the map is extremely big, and you have a lot of other teams competing against you. But in this Plunder mode, you're essentially trying to collect as much cash as possible, and when the game actually ends, the team with the most amount of cash actually wins. And it is a very different take on Battle Royale, because it's not really Battle Royale. Even though you're playing on a big massive map, you have a different objective besides just trying to go around and eliminate other teams. You have money to worry about, and then on top of that, you do get full control of respawns are in the game if you play the Plunder mode, so that's very nice. But yeah, first of all, again, it does have that Call of Duty name on it, so of course people are going to want to check this out whether they like BRs or not. I think another reason why so many people out there are actually going to want to check out Call of Duty Warzone is just the fact that Warzone does have another mode you can try besides BR. So if you're interested in that, you can go ahead and then try that. And then the biggest reason why this probably hit 30 million players in just 10 days is the fact that, unlike their last Call of Duty BR game, which they did make another Battle Royale game back on Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 had one. This one is a little bit different because it's not attached to the current Call of Duty. It should have been attached to Call of Duty Modern Warfare, since this is pretty much using the same engine as Call of Duty Warfare, or Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Yes, Modern Warfare, so it plays like it feels like it. It's pretty much just a battle royale version of Modern Warfare, but instead of just releasing it with the game, I think Call of Duty really did our Infinity Ward and Activision really did a very good thing by actually releasing this game as a free-to-play game, and I think that's why so many people are actually gravitating towards this game, because it is a free-to-play game, so it's very easy to access. Granted, Call of Duty Warzone is a very big game, especially if you want to download it as a standalone game. I think it is actually a little bit less in space if you actually already own Modern Warfare from last year. And then, of course, the biggest thing that really made this hit 30 million, probably without a doubt, is the fact, you can't even argue this, is the whole epidemic that's going around in the world today is really making people stay indoors much more often. And since people are staying in much more indoors, of course, and the hype behind this, and the top off that this game is a free-to-play game, of course, you have a success. I think this game really did release at such optimal time where everybody's forced to stay indoors, everybody can't really go out, a lot of people are playing it, it's free to play. Just honestly makes sense as a company, and this is, like I said, the right move from Infinity Ward and Activision to actually release this game as a free-to-play game nowadays. And I'm assuming this game's going to rack up a whole bunch of money just because it released at the right time. It's free-to-play, and you can see there is 30 million players playing this game, and that's actually pretty good news because I don't think anyone expected it to do that phenomenally well, but it has been doing phenomenally well considering that it is free to play and there's not really too much you can do in the game. But yeah, it is a solid game. I've played it. Most likely you may played it. Even if you haven't played it, you may know someone that played it. You may have seen footage. You may have watched other people play it. It is a solid game. And I also think another reason why so many people out there actually like this game as well, are trying to gravitate towards this game, because if you watched any footage of this game in regards to the Battle Royale mode, you know they are actually trying to mix up the formula. It's not just another Battle Royale, even though it is just another Battle Royale, if that makes sense. The main core concept of the Battle Royale is the same as any other Battle Royale. Try to be the last one standing on a big map where you go around looting stuff, but just the fact that I added these things like the Gulag, if you ever played it, Gulag gives you basically more chances to survive, more chances to thrive in the game. They also have these buy stations in the game. There's just more ways to survive in this game. It's just overall, I personally think it is one of the better BR games out there. Is it the best BR game? Of course, it'll depend on your preference. What type of gunplay do you like? Do you like third-person shooters? Do you like first-person shooters? Do you like cartoony games? Do you like more realistic shooters? Do you like team-based stuff? Do you not like team-based stuff? Overall, there is a lot to be said there when it comes to, is this the best BR game flat out? I don't think there is one definitive answer, but honestly, I do think they made a right formula here where the gun gameplay is solid, the mechanics are solid, they're trying things a little bit different than the other BR games, free to play, coming out at the right time. Overall, you have a recipe for success here, especially in these times of need. Now let's actually talk about something that's kind of going on in the world, and let's talk about this really quickly. If you go over here, it looks like YouTube joins Netflix in reducing quality in Europe. Basically, you guys know what's going on in the world right now, and basically, I guess since everyone's told to be quarantined off in their houses, of course, more and more people are using the internet more and more frequently, and I guess since more and more people are using the internet more frequently, of course, the internet is starting to bog down in many different countries and things like that, and that does make sense because internet traffic as we speak right now, as I'm making this video, must be extremely high everywhere in the world. More people are working from home, more people are getting bored, more people are just getting on the internet, and I don't think a lot of these companies actually expected this to actually be a thing, because this is a natural disaster, and even with our current technologies that we currently have around the world, you would think the servers would be able to handle it, the internet wouldn't bog down. But when you have a mass amount of people on the internet all the time, pretty much like 24/7 now, who aren't normally on the internet, but they have to be on the internet now because they are quarantined off and things like that, it does make the internet slow. The internet is still not invincible as you may think, and in times it could really bog down and it could be frustrating. So to combat this and try to make sure everybody stays happy while they're on the internet, YouTube and Netflix are going to be reducing the quality. Now, it does say right here from this article, it is only going to be Europe, so it's not going to be any other country. Could they do this in other countries, and are they already doing it? Who knows if they are already doing it. You may actually see your speeds in your place actually already being reduced. Basically, what they're doing is they're not reducing the speeds at which you stream their stuff. They're actually going to be cutting back the quality at which you can watch YouTube videos and Netflix movies and TV shows to everybody, just so everybody can have the most optimal streaming experience. And like I said, that does make sense, and I'm not honestly too mad about that, because as long as you have content to watch, and honestly as long as it's not that bad to watch in the long run, is not necessarily a bad thing. I honestly think it's a good step in the right direction, especially in this time of needs. And you may be super bored and you may actually want to do something, since you're going to be stuck indoors most of the time for who knows how long. So it is nice YouTube and Netflix are actually doing this. If you actually read this, it looks like they are slowing you down to speeds of they are slowing your they are basically cutting back your resolutions that you are able to stream YouTube and Netflix. I think YouTube might be lowered to 720p, I think, and then Netflix in Europe is being lowered to like standard definition. So don't be surprised if your stuff doesn't look all the greatest. I think YouTube did say they are automatically regardless of your internet connection, are going to be lowering it to like 720p, and in some cases even standard definition by default. I don't know if you'll have a option to change it later, but if they do this, you know, a lot of people out there don't really know about the internet and don't really care about changing the quality, and as long as something looks fairly decent, they'll be able to get by. So it is, I personally think it is a very good move in the right direction at this time where everybody's stayed home. You don't want to have to be in a situation where you try to log on to your favorite website, whether you need it for entertainment purposes, work purposes, and you just can't get on it. Not to say that, for instance, Netflix is really used for work purposes, or YouTube's really for work purposes, but YouTube more so is kind of can be used as like a work tool in certain situations. So it is nice that they are trying to make it as smooth as possible, because so many people are on the internet and they're probably bogging down the servers so much. And let's be honest, YouTube and Netflix were probably not prepared for this, just like any other company or any people were not prepared for a big crisis to be going on around in the world now. So that is nice, and I think, like I said, it is a step in the right direction for these companies. Whether you hate it or love it, I think it's the right move here, just so everything can run smoothly, and at least you have something to do or something to watch in this time of need when you're stuck inside your house. And then let's move on to the last one. The last one on my list is actually about a card game, and this one is actually about Valve's card game. So you may not know this, but Valve actually released a card game to the public. I think it wasn't free to play. I think you actually had to buy it. I think it came out in the end of 2018 or the end of 2019. No, the end of 2018 for sure. But basically the card game was called Artifact, and it was made by the company Valve, who of course they own Steam. They also make Half-Life, which is a big franchise. They made Left 4 Dead. They made a couple of different properties. But yeah, basically what happened with this card game called Artifact, it pretty much, when it released, it didn't get Steam, no pun intended. It didn't catch Steam, and basically what happened was it failed miserably hard, to where the servers were practically dead. Nobody was playing it. It eventually just disappeared because that's how bad it was. I think there was a couple of reasons why this card game actually failed. If we actually go over here, here's what the card game looked like. Most likely you probably never actually played this card game called Artifact, because one, there is a lot of card games to choose from on the market. So in today's market, it is very hard to get into the card game business when there's so many card games, which so many people are attached to. Of course, we got things like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Hearthstone. There's all these other options, Magic the Gathering. It's just really hard to come out with a brand new, unique concept that can really catch steam, no pun intended again, that can actually make people actually want to play your card game. But I think, as far as I remember, because I do remember hearing the news about this, I even think back when this card game was actually, I guess, relevant, if you can even call this game relevant, which it really wasn't relevant at the time of it coming out. I think the problem was a lot of people, at least from what I heard from people that did play the game, which was like practically nobody, but from the few people who actually played this game, apparently from what I heard, this game actually had a bad microtransaction system, and they were doing some scummy tactics, and apparently it was hard to get the decks that you actually wanted to build to get the good cards. And if that's the case, of course, these games basically live or die based off of microtransactions, because it's easy for a company to come into one of these card games and microtransaction this up, where it feels like it's either a microtransaction landfill where you have to pay for all the good cards, or you can get all the good cards for free, but they can just keep on milking you to where you got to grind heavily to actually get the deck that you actually want. And honestly, I think in this regards, I think that's really what Valve actually did wrong. I think they didn't monetize this right. They put too many scummy microtransactions in it. But the news is basically right here from this article. They're basically going to be rebooting this, and I have a lot of different mixed feelings about this. On one hand, it's not a bad idea to try something again. Basically what Valve's saying in this article, if you read this article, it says, we ran an experiment, we got a negative result, and now we need to see if we've learned anything from that. So let's try again. And that's what the Artifact team have been doing, and that's what they're getting ready to release. Based on the reaction to it, what was wrong with the product? How do we get there? Let's fix those things and take another run at it. So basically, they're saying they're going to learn from their mistakes. They're trying to get people's feedback on why they didn't like the game in the first place. If you played the game, which most likely you didn't like the game, since no one really liked it to begin with, and it failed. So basically, they're going to be calling it Artifact. They're basically just going to be calling it Artifact 2. They're not going to try anything weird here, like changing the name of the game, changing the aspect of the game. Most likely it's going to still be the same exact game, whether you loved it or hated it, and they're going to try to learn from their mistakes. But honestly, if you ask me, I know this is a mixed you're going to get mixed responses from people. Should you make a brand new game in the series or not make a brand new game in the series? Considering also this is a card game. Honestly, for me personally, I don't know why Valve would actually want to focus a lot of their efforts on a Artifact 2 when Artifact 1 failed miserably hard. It's definitely one of the worst games of all time in terms of not being a success. It really did fail hard. I know they did some wrong things, but who knows, maybe if they release like Artifact 2, they may actually be able to turn things around and it may look up for this game. But honestly, I think it's going to be really hard for people who already played Artifact in the first place, who didn't like it, to really want to play Artifact 2. And of course, we'll have to see and wait to how they actually improve on the original Artifact that, like, honestly, nobody played in the first place to a game that's going to be extremely popular, because I just don't see it with so many other card games already out on the market. Like I said before, card games are just really hard to get successful because you got to find a really nice balance with the actual gameplay of it. The gameplay obviously is make it or break it, and there's so many of these monster card games. And the problem is with a lot of these monster card games as well, the one key thing you have to take into consideration is how easy is it for somebody to get invested in your game, and how easy is it for you to play the game. Because I feel like with a lot of these card games, a lot of reasons why a lot of people who want to play these card games can't get invested in your card games, because a lot of the mechanics may be a little bit too easy, a little bit too hard, or for instance, maybe it's just a card game that doesn't have fun mechanics. It's just really hard to make one of these card games since there's so many of these types of card games on the market. And also, how similar are you going to make it to other monster card games on the market that are trading card games? Because I feel like you may be already retreading places that already been done before. Like for instance, this card game, if you play this card game, they may make it too similar to something like a Hearthstone, a Yu-Gi-Oh, a Pokemon, a Monster the Gathering, all these different card games that are already successful. And what's the point of coming out with a card game and having it already feel too similar to card games that are already successful, that already have a really huge fan base? And the problem is with these card games too is you have to find a way to pull people from playing those other card games. And the problem I feel like with card games as a whole, this may just be me, but I feel like if I'm invested in a card game that I really do like, I've put in so many hours to make a deck that I'm actually happy with. I've learned the mechanics, I've learned the meta of the game, I've learned all the strategies and things like that. It's really hard to pull me from a card game that I'm already heavily invested in, that I've been playing for years, to go to a new card game, because I don't want to have to relearn all these new mechanics. I don't want to have to start a deck from scratch, have to invest a lot of time when I'm already invested in this other card game. That's personally just me. So they need to find a good balance to actually balance the game so people can get invested in your game, new players can want to play it, and things like that. And you have to find something that's going to be engaging, going to actually be fresh, going to be new, a good mechanic that's going to make it fun to keep wanting to play this game. But it is interesting. I actually didn't expect this to be in the news, that Valve is going to be making an Artifact 2 TCG again. I just didn't expect it after this game bombed extremely hard. You would think this game would be dead in the water, but it looks like Valve still has hopes, and they wanted this game to be a success, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't a success in the first place. So there you go. Valve is going to be getting a reboot for the Artifact game. That was a TCG that failed a couple years ago. So there it is, Artifact 2, which of course, I don't know what Valve is thinking, since obviously if they really wanted money, I don't think this is the way to go. Honestly, I know these games are good for microtransactions. It makes sense with card packs you can buy with real currency or real money in real life. I think they need to stick to things like Left 4 Dead, and of course working on Half-Life, which of course they do have Half-Life Alyx coming out in the near future, which is a VR only game. You need to get to Half-Life 3 and Left 4 Dead 3. Those are properties that people actually want and actually want to play from Valve, and you'd be making a lot of money. I don't know, again, why they're investing so much effort and time on trying to rebalance this game. I can bet your bottom dollar if Artifact 2 fails, there's no point of even trying to make an Artifact 3. You might as well call the series dead in the water. But let's hope and pray that Artifact 2 is going to be a fun game and actually get people to actually play this game, and maybe things will look up for Artifact. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from